Let's do it live. We'll do it live. We are going to take a look at some big news. Some big news in the world of politics, okay? Here we go. This is a press conference from Wisconsin Governor Democrat Evers.
This is an important day and historic day for our state and for every person who calls Wisconsin home. Today is a day that I believe will define our state's future. This will be the first time in over 50 years that Wisconsin will have fair legislative maps enacted through the legislative process rather than through the courts. These maps will take effect immediately after publication and will be in place for the fall elections, providing certainty for candidates and campaigns that are gearing up to circulate nomination papers for this spring.
All right, folks. So, what this means is that for the first time in more than a decade, the state of Wisconsin, which is a battleground state, it is a purple state. We're going to dive into that. Will no longer have the worst gerrymandered maps in the United States. Political experts, political scientists have said that Wisconsin's voting maps are literally the worst and the least democratic in the nation. Okay. Now, because and we'll get into all this, but this is what the maps look like before. This is from Governor Evers' his X page on Twitter. After more than a decade, Wisconsin finally has fair maps. My maps are fair, responsive, and reflect the will of the people. This is what they look like before. Pay attention to the GIF. This is what they look like after, folks. This is huge. This is huge. Okay. So, and this is something that I'm not going to say I'm responsible for or anything like that, but I've certainly I tried to help contribute to when I canvassed with Progressive Victory, Progress Libs, and DGG Destiny's Community back in March and April of 2023. We went to Wisconsin. All of us knocked on doors to get word out for the upcoming Supreme Court election in Wisconsin. So Wisconsin, like most states, they elect their state's highest courts. And in Wisconsin, there are 7 justices, and there was a conservative justice who was leaving, who not going to run for office again, which means there was going to be a vacancy and a chance to flip the balance of the court. That happened because the liberal justice, or the liberal judge at the time, Janet Protasiewicz, won the election. So for the first time in more than a decade, the Wisconsin Supreme Court was flipped to a liberal bias, liberal bent, and it made it possible for Democratic groups to challenge the gerrymandered electoral maps, which again, for more than a decade, had been flipped towards the Republicans. Folks, this is insane. I want you to be aware of some of the facts here, okay? So check this out. Madness. The existing map heavily favored Republicans, who controlled 64 out of 99 seats in the state assembly and 22 out of 33 in the state senate, because it has a bicameral legislature in a battleground state that has seen razor thin margins. 64 out of 99, 22 out of 33. And when I say Wisconsin's a purple state, I mean it. Right now, they have 2 senators. One is a Republican and one is a Democrat. They went for Obama in 2012, Trump in 2016, and Biden in 2020. If you do polling, Pew Research shows this, for every one Republican aligned citizen or resident of Wisconsin, you can find at least one Democrat. And yet that was the margin. And that was because Republicans briefly got the trifecta. They got the governor's mansion, they got control of the state legislature, and they got control of the Supreme Court back in like 2011. And they passed the most ruthlessly gerrymandered maps in the state's history, and really worse than any we've seen throughout the entire country. And it took this long to get that addressed. This doesn't change the U.S. House map for Wisconsin. That's still biased towards the GOP. I think it will control, or it will change the number of like congressional districts, but it will certainly, I know it will change the internal composition of the state. As a matter of fact, I think they did. There was an analysis done by Milwaukee, a local newspaper in Milwaukee. According to a Milwaukee Journal Sentinel analysis, the new maps have a roughly even split of Democratic and Republican leaning state assembly districts, which will all but guarantee a wave of Democratic gains this fall. They have specific numbers, I recall, from this article. Um, okay, right here. It still even somewhat favors the Republicans. The 99 assembly districts proposed by Evers are about evenly split between Republican and Democratic leaning districts. 45 districts are more Democratic than Republican, and 46 are more Republican than Democratic. That leaves 8 districts that are more likely to be a toss up between Democrats and Republicans. Dude, completely fair, more than fair, because with a liberal Supreme Court, state Supreme Court, and a Democratic governor, it's entirely possible that Governor Evers could have pushed for basically the reverse, heavily gerrymandered maps which overtly favor Democrats. But Evers didn't do that, right? So he just went for what was fair. The speaker, the Republican speaker of the state assembly, let me pull this up, was not happy about it. Today, Governor Evers signed the most Republican leaning maps out of all the Democratic gerrymandered maps being considered by the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So, folks, this guy, this Republican representative, the leader of the Republicans in Wisconsin, is so biased. He's so hacky that he refers to these maps, which still favor at least by one the Republicans, right? 45 would lean Democrat, 46 would lean Republican, one more. He considers that a Democrat gerrymandered maps being considered by the Wisconsin Supreme Court. We sent him those maps not because they're fair, but because the people of Wisconsin deserve certainty in state government. The legislation brings an end to the sham of a litigation designed to deliver judicially gerrymandered Democratic maps to the liberal special interest groups funding said litigation. This fall, Republicans will prove that we can win on any maps because we have the better policy ideas for the state of Wisconsin. We're happy that the governor's signature brings an end to decades of liberal special interest litigation over the maps. Folks, how gross is that? This is Robin. So again, a set of maps which still technically favor by one the Republicans. He refers to these as Democrat gerrymandered maps. This goes into the ethos of what the modern Republican Party is. They think fair. They think roughly 50-50. And I say roughly because, again, it slightly favors the Republicans, that's unfair. It's unfair. Anything less than a completely lopsided arrangement, which overwhelmingly favors Republicans, electoral, political, or affirmative action in terms of electoral maps, it's the only thing acceptable to Republicans. Super gross.